The Temple of Robbers. The air in the great temple's outer court was thick, not with incense, but with the stench of greed. It was a holy place, but its sanctity was buried under the clamor of 1,000 transactions. Merchants hawked their sacrificial animals, their voices sharp and grating. The money changers sat behind their tables, their eyes like chips of flint, weighing souls against shekels. This was not a house of prayer. It was a marketplace of the spirit, and everything was for sale. Jesus moved through the throng, an island of calm in a sea of avarice. His gaze was sharp, missing nothing. He saw a merchant sell a blemished lamb to a family that had traveled for days, their faces etched with weary devotion. He saw the cold, dismissive way the money changers cheated the poor, who sought to exchange their worldly currency for a temple coin. A fire began to smolder in his eyes, a righteous anger that was as pure and terrible as a storm gathering on the horizon. He stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath around him. He bent down, his movements deliberate and unnervingly calm, and began to gather the discarded lengths of rope and cord that littered the stone floor. He braided them together, his knuckles white, his focus absolute. He was not just weaving a whip, he was weaving a reckoning. The first table went over with a crash that silenced the entire court. A wave of wood, silver, and bronze exploded across the flagstones. The money changer, who a moment before had been the picture of smug authority, stared in disbelief, his mouth agape. The ringing of the scattered coins was the only sound. Out, the word was not a scream, but a command with the force of an earthquake. It ripped through the stunned silence, and suddenly, the whirlwind was unleashed. Jesus moved with a speed that was not entirely human, the whip cracking in the air, a sound of authority, not punishment. He didn't strike the men, but he herded them, a shepherd driving wolves from his father's flock. He threw open the cages of the doves, and they erupted into the air, a frantic, beautiful cloud of white against the stone archways. He untied the oxen and the sheep, driving them out of the sacred precinct. The panicked bleating of the animals was a prayer of liberation, washing away the cynical drone of commerce. He came to a stop in the center of the now empty court. The debris of the market lay scattered at his feet. The air was clean again. He turned his burning gaze upon the priests and elders who had watched, frozen from the porticos. "It is written," he declared, his voice resonating with divine power. "My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers." From the shadows of the colonnade, the chief priests watched, their faces pale with a mixture of rage and terror. This was not just a protest. It was a challenge to their entire system, to the power they held so dear. They did not move against him. They couldn't. Instead, they huddled together, their whispers like the hissing of snakes, and began to plot his death. Into the silence, the broken came. The blind, the lame, the outcasts who were normally shoved to the edges of the temple grounds now approached him. The fire in Jesus' eyes softened to a gentle flame. He knelt, the whip now forgotten, and met their desperation with a wave of divine compassion. One by one he touched them, and they were made whole. His work was done. The temple had been cleansed, not just of merchants, but of despair. It was a house of the Father once more. Jesus turned and walked away, his solitary figure receding down the long, pillared hall. He left behind a sacred silence, a group of healed and hopeful people, and a furious enemy. The battle for the temple was over, but the war for the soul of the world had just begun.